Imagine a world where, like, a super wealthy, well-connected guy can just comfortably bail a confessed murderer out of jail before breakfast.
Yeah.
But then, he turns right around and sentences his own starving servant to 6 months of hard labor just for stealing a tiny handful of grass.
It sounds totally absurd, yeah, like the
Ugh.
premise of a dystopian movie or something.
Exactly. But actually, it's a century-old reflection of a society that might look, well, uncomfortably similar to the one we live in today. So welcome to another custom-tailored deep dive.
We've got a really fascinating one today.
We really do. We are opening a literary treasure trove just for you today, diving into a stack of translated excerpts from Munshi Premchand's Mansarovar Part 4.
And the mission here is, it's really to strip away those polite, carefully constructed masks of society.
Right, to examine the raw, uncomfortable, and honestly sometimes darkly hilarious truths about human nature and class.
Yeah, we are looking at why society builds these hypocritical structures and, how individuals either manage to break free from them or just get utterly crushed underneath.
It is a phenomenal collection to dive into. Because Premchand, he doesn't just write stories, right? He dissects social anatomy.
Oh, absolutely. He was writing in early 20th century India, which was this time of massive transition. But he focuses entirely on the enduring machinery of human behavior.
Which is why it feels so modern.
Exactly. We are going to see how the rules of the game change depending on who is playing, starting with probably the most visceral theme in these sources, which is physical survival in a system designed to exploit you.
Yeah, let's look at that exact scenario I mentioned in the hook. This comes from the story Savyata Karasya, which translates to The Secret of Civilization.
Right.
We have this character named Sahab. He's a magistrate, considered a total pillar of his community, and he uses his influence to bail out a wealthy man who has literally committed murder.
Just casually bails them out.
Right. Meanwhile, Sahab employs a servant named Damdi. And Damdi is desperately poor. His oxens are starving to death right in front of him.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation.
Yeah. So in a moment of pure desperation, Damdi takes a minuscule amount of fodder from a field just to keep his animals alive. He is caught, and Sahab, his own employer, just throws the book at him. 6 months of hard labor.
It's basically the classic paradigm of, a corporate executive embezzling millions and getting a slap on the wrist.
Yes.
Yeah.
While a desperate person gets a decade in prison for shoplifting bread or baby formula.
And the title of the story is really the key to understanding Premchand's critique here, The Secret of Civilization.
Because it's not actually civilized at all.
Exactly. In Ray Sahab's world, civilization has absolutely nothing to do with art or philosophy or human rights. It's defined as the mechanical skill of hiding your sins behind a veil of respectability.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
Right. Ray Sahab is civilized not because he is good, but because his corruption is systemic. It's sanctioned.
Wow. And Damdi is a criminal not because he is inherently bad, but because his desperation is visible.
Exactly. It's unsanctioned. When the poor break a rule to survive, it's a crime. When the powerful break a rule, it's just networking.
That is so bleak. But it makes perfect sense in that context. And that systemic sanctioned cruelty, it becomes literal physical violence in another story in our stack, Sadgati.
Yes, Sadgati.
We follow a man named Duki. And this is where the societal context is just so crucial for you to understand, because Duki isn't just poor. His last name is Chamar.
Yeah, we really need to unpack that for the listener. Because in the historical and cultural context of India, the term Chamar denotes a marginalized elite caste.
Right, the untouchability aspect.
Exactly. These are communities that were subjected to horrific systemic oppression. The caste system dictated this absolute rigid hierarchy of purity and pollution.
So it's not just about money.
Not at all. Duki isn't just at the bottom of an economic ladder. The system dictates that his very physical presence, his touch, even his shadow, are spiritually polluting to the upper castes.
Which makes the central conflict of the story just so brutal. Duki needs the local priest, Pandit Baba, to pick an auspicious date for his daughter's wedding.
Right, a very standard cultural requirement.
Just a simple favor. But to own this, Duki has to perform agonizing physical labor on an empty stomach. He is tasked with chopping a massive, seemingly unbreakable knot of wood.
It's essentially a death sentence.
It is.
Yeah.
He swings the axe until he literally collapses and dies at the Pandit's door. And the Pandit's reaction is what really chilled me. He feels zero remorse.
Nothing.
His only concern, his singular anxiety, is how to dispose of Duki's corpse without having to physically touch it and pollute himself.
It is a devastating portrayal of institutionalized apathy. What's fascinating here is that the pandit isn't suffering from personal germophobia.
Right. It's not a quirk.
He is operating exactly as the caste system programmed him to. The system views Dookie as a utility when he's alive and a hazard when he's dead.
The human being in between is just entirely invisible.
Exactly. He ultimately gets scavengers to drag the body into the fields with a rope.
Yeah.
It demonstrates how a socially constructed hierarchy can just completely overwrite basic human empathy.
Man, okay, let's unpack this a bit more. Because that physical corruption of the body we see with Dookie inevitably bleeds into the corruption of the mind.
Oh, absolutely. When physical survival is threatened, moral survival usually goes out the window.
Right, which brings us to Garib, the protagonist of the story Samasya. He is a peon, like a low-ranking office worker, and he starts off incredibly sweet, innocent, and pure-hearted.
Which is his biggest mistake in that environment.
Literally. Because of that, he is abused by literally everyone in the office hierarchy. He gets screamed at and humiliated just for accidentally knocking over a bottle of ink.
He is the office punching bag precisely because he hasn't learned the unspoken rules of the institution. He expects hard work and honesty to protect him.
Which is his fatal flaw. So he adapts. He realizes honesty is getting him nowhere.
Right, he figures out the game.
He does. He starts bringing fresh peas and sugar cane from his village and strategically offering them as bribes to his superiors.
And suddenly the screaming stops.
Exactly. He's treated with respect. He learns to be cunning, to smile while manipulating the people above him.
It works perfectly.
It does, but I have to push back a little on the idea of innocence here. Obviously, Dookie's physical death is horrific. But isn't there a profound tragedy in what happens to Garib?
How do you mean?
I mean, is the tragedy of Garib the peon actually worse than Dookie's because Garib had to sacrifice his own soul just to survive the office politics? He has to murder his own innocence just to buy his right to exist comfortably.
I wouldn't even call it a pushback, honestly. I think you've hit on the exact tension Premchand wants us to sit with.
Yeah.
The system forces a horrific binary choice. You either retain your purity and are ground into dust like Dookie, or you assimilate into the corruption to survive, like Garib.
So it's a trap either way.
Exactly. Garib's story is a moral tragedy. The system doesn't allow for innocent survival. You either die a victim or you live long enough to become part of the machinery.
Wow. It is an incredibly bleak picture of power. But the brilliant thing about this collection is how Premchand suddenly shifts gears.
He really does.
He takes that same power dynamic, that same systemic hierarchy, and exposes how incredibly fragile and comical it is when it collides with human ego.
Yes, the comedic elements are brilliant.
Let's talk about the drama script. This is a perfect demonstration of intellectual blind spots. We follow three educated men, Guru Prasad, Vinod, and a dramatist.
Right, they've written a play.
Yes, and they want to sell it to a wealthy patron named Sethji.
And their self-deception begins before they even meet him. I mean, they decide to walk a really long distance to Sethji's house instead of hiring a carriage.
Oh, right.
And they tell each other they are doing this because they are quote-unquote nature lovers and want to enjoy the fresh air. When in reality, they simply do not want to part with the few coins it would cost to ride.
They are already performing for each other before they even get to the patron.
Exactly.
So they arrive at Sethji's house, tired and dusty. And Sethji immediately reads the room. He seats them on plush cushions. He offers them expensive cigars. But his real weapon is his mouth.
Oh, he plays them like a fiddle.
He does. He flatters them relentlessly. He calls the writer an infinite mirror of society. He practically compares him to Shakespeare.
And it works perfectly.
It does. Sethji gets the manuscript, which took them months of grueling intellectual labor entirely for free. He even cons them into agreeing to stick around the theater company for months, unpaid, just to fix the actor's pronunciation.
It is an absolute masterclass in psychological manipulation.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Why does it work so easily? These are highly educated, intelligent men. How do they walk away with empty pockets, feeling like they've won? I mean, Guru Prasad and his friends basically let Sethji pay for their hard work with the 1920s equivalent of Instagram likes and exposure. Why are highly educated intellectual people so incredibly blind when someone strokes their ego?
That's the core of it. Because a skilled con artist doesn't attack your intellect, they hijack your self-image. Flattery is a bypass mechanism for critical thinking. Sethji didn't have to convince them that he was giving them a good deal financially. He just had loudly confirmed the genius they already believed they possessed.
Oh, wow. So the ego is the weak point.
Intellectual vanity is the ultimate blind spot. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these comedic stories are really the flip side of the previous segment. If the poor are trapped by economics, the educated elite are trapped by their own narcissism.
That makes so much sense. And we see that exact psychological bypass exploited again in the story Dapper Singh, or The Hypocrite.
Yes, Karunikar Joshi.
Right. He's a serial con artist. He doesn't target the greedy. He targets the sympathetic. He drains money from wealthy, comfortable writers by performing the role of the idealist victim. He spins these elaborate tales of his own nobility and suffering.
And the writers he scams, like Mather, are just as trapped by their egos as the dramatists were.
How so?
Because they hand over their money not purely out of empathy, but because giving to a noble cause allows them to perform virtue. They want to feel like benevolent, historically important patrons of the arts.
So they're buying a feeling about themselves.
Exactly. They are so busy admiring the reflection of their own generosity that they completely fail to notice their pockets are being picked.
And when that narcissism collides with reality, the results are hilarious. Take the corrupt police inspector in Darogaji.
Oh, that story is fantastic.
He makes his living framing innocent people. One night, he gets caught in a massive storm and has to beg for shelter at a random house. He gets inside, dries off, and realizes the homeowner is a man he previously sent to jail on fake charges.
The sheer panic of the oppressor suddenly finding himself at the mercy of his victim. It is poetic justice.
It really is.
It's the sudden collapse of the stage. The inspector has spent his life writing the script, and suddenly he is trapped in someone else's.
Exactly. And my absolute favorite example of the stage collapsing is Pandit Chakradhar in the story Vinod. He sits in a philosophy class and becomes completely infatuated with an Anglo-Indian classmate named Lucy.
But he doesn't actually know her at all.
Not even a little. He projects this massive, sweeping, romantic fantasy onto her. He assumes that because he is an educated philosopher, she must secretly be yearning for his intellect.
Right, the ego again.
So he writes her incredibly presumptuous love letter. And reality steps in to correct him in the best way possible. She walks right up to him and physically slaps him across the face.
Which is the necessary shattering of his delusion. His education, his philosophy, his societal standing, none of it acts as a shield against his own foolishness.
Not even a little bit.
These men perform their roles. You know, the grand dramatist, the benevolent patron, the romantic intellectual. And reality eventually slacks them. Sometimes proverbially and sometimes literally.
Literally in his case. Okay, so we've seen how these power dynamics and egos play out in the public sphere, you know, the courts, the offices, theaters, classrooms. But Premchand doesn't stop there.
No, he goes much deeper.
He takes us behind closed doors into the intimate, private sphere to show how societal expectations completely infect romantic relationships and personal freedom.
This is where it gets really tragic again.
Yeah. Let's transition to Shraddha and Bhagatram. Shraddha is a brilliant young woman. She gives this fiery, revolutionary public speech that completely captivates Bhagatram. They fall deeply in love, but there is a massive societal shadow hanging over them.
The shadow of lineage.
Her.
Shraddha's mother, Kokila, was a former courtesan.
Right.
And in the cultural context of the time, the to-wife or courtesan culture carried a complex, heavily stigmatized weight. Even though Shraddha is educated and politically active, society just cannot look past her mother's profession.
So she's basically deemed permanently tainted.
Exactly.
And the weight of that stigma is lethal. The societal pressure, the gossip, the ostracization, it becomes so heavy that it ruins their chance at a life together. The stress and illness literally kill Bhagatram.
It's awful.
He dies with his love unfulfilled entirely because of a social rule about who is respectable enough to marry. But then Premchand flips the script on us with the story of Padma and Vinod.
Yes, the contrast here is so striking.
Because if Shraddha is destroyed by a lack of freedom, Padma is tormented by having way too much of it.
It is a brilliant juxtaposition.
Right. So Padma is married to Vinod. And Vinod is a highly modern, educated man. He represents the new, progressive India. He doesn't control her. He isn't jealous. He encourages her absolute independence.
He gives her the exact freedom that Shraddha and Bhagatram died wishing for.
Exactly. And Padma absolutely hates it. She interprets his lack of jealousy and his refusal to control her as a lack of true love.
She doesn't understand it.
No. She actually wants him to act like a possessive, jealous caveman to prove he cares. So what does this all mean? We have Shraddha, who is destroyed because society won't let her love freely. And then we have Padma, who has total freedom, but wants her husband to act like a jealous caveman to feel loved.
This raises an important question about what constitutes true love versus the performance of love.
Right. How do you reconcile that bizarre contradiction?
Well, you have to look at how deep societal conditioning runs. Shraddha represents the external barrier, right? Society actively punishing individuals for things beyond their control.
Okay, yeah.
But Tadma represents the deep psychological scarring of that conditioning. She's been taught her entire life that if a man doesn't try to own you, he doesn't value you.
Oh, wow.
So freedom feels like abandonment to her. Even when given modern freedom, individuals struggle to accept it without the traditional markers of possession and control.
Yeah.
She cannot separate love from ownership.
Because her culture has always defined them as the exact same thing. It's heartbreaking. She is free on paper, but her mind is demanding the cage.
Precisely. And this hypocrisy regarding women, lineage, and respectability is further exposed in Sulochana's story, Dukkha Brine.
Oh, yes.
Sulochana, much like Shraddha, has a courtesan mother. Because of this, she is completely ostracized by the so-called respectable women of her town. They won't speak to her, they won't associate with her at all.
But the husbands...
Yet the husbands of these very same respectable women eagerly and regularly visit Sulochana's home.
Of course they do. And they claim they are there for, what, intellectual debate?
Exactly. They wrap their voyeurism in the cloak of academic interest. They are really just there to gawk at her beauty and enjoy the thrill of associating with a taboo woman.
Wow.
It is the ultimate double standard. Society punishes women for their lineage, while men actively exploit that same lineage for their own entertainment.
It's the Ray-Sahab dynamic all over again. One rule for the powerful, one rule for the vulnerable. The hypocrisy is just suffocating.
It really is.
It makes you wonder how the human mind survives it without snapping. Which brings us to our final segment, the breaking points. Because when the pressures of society, the weight of expectations, and these deeply ingrained flaws become too much, the characters in these stories undergo radical transformations. They either break completely into the realm of the bizarre and supernatural, or they achieve profound, unexpected personal redemption.
Let's examine the supernatural break first. This is found in the story Nag-Puja.
This story is wild.
It is definitely surreal.
We have a character named Tilotama. During the day, she is described as the absolute perfect, obedient, docile society wife. She caters to her husband, Dairam, who is a respected professor.
Picture of domestic bliss.
Right. But at night, in the privacy of their bedroom, something snaps. She transforms into a terrifying, hissing, snake-like entity.
Literally hissing and writhing.
She writhes, she hisses, she becomes monstrous. Dairam is terrified of her, and this madness only ends when Dairam discovers a literal, physical, giant black snake lurking in her room, and he shoots it.
Right.
Once the physical snake is dead, Tilotama collapses, wakes up, and magically goes back to being the perfect, smiling, submissive wife.
It's quite the ending.
We go from a literal snake wife to a perfect society lady again. I think Tilotama's snake possession is almost a metaphor for the suppressed rage of being the perfect society wife, don't you think?
Oh, I completely agree with that metaphor. Think about the restrictions on women we just discussed with Padma, Shraddha, and Sulochana.
Right, the immense pressure.
The pressure to be docile, to accept ostracization, to navigate male hypocrisy. Tilotama is performing the role of the flawless, submissive wife so intensely during the day that her suppressed autonomy and her rage have to go somewhere.
So they literally manifest as a venomous monster at night.
Exactly. And when her husband shoots the physical snake...
He is enacting the ultimate suppression.
Yes. He is violently killing that wild, unacceptable, independent part of her psyche. He cures the disease of her rebellion, forcing her permanently back into the polite, manageable mold the society requires.
It is a horror story disguised as a supernatural thriller. That is terrifying. But thankfully, Premchand doesn't leave us entirely in the dark. We pivot from that surreal suppression to what is easily the most beautiful and touching story in the stack. Prerna, which translates to inspiration.
It's a wonderful palate cleanser.
It really is. We meet a young man named Suritra Prakash. He is the ultimate rebel. He's the worst student in school. He actively tortures his teachers. He runs a gang of delinquents.
Just completely out of control.
The school tries everything. They punish him, they lecture him, they discipline him, but nothing works. He just gets harder and angrier. But then a completely unexpected variable is introduced.
Right.
He is forced into a situation where he has to care for a frail, sickly, orphan boy named Mohan.
And this frail boy requires everything from him. Constant attention, care, patience.
Exactly. And Surya Prakash completely transforms. The anger evaporates. He becomes responsible, empathetic, and gentle. He eventually grows up to be a highly successful, grounded man.
It's total 180.
Sadly, Mohan is too sick and eventually dies, but his memory becomes Surya Prakash's guiding light for the rest of his life. My question for you is, why did love and responsibility fix Surya Prakash when years of strict discipline and punishment from highly educated teachers completely failed?
Well, because Premchand is arguing a core truth about human development here. Knowledge, rules, and discipline are utterly useless without empathy.
Really? Just useless.
In this context, yes. The teachers represented the system, that civilization we talked about at the beginning. They viewed Surya Prakash as a problem to be solved, like a defective gear in the machine that needed to be hammered back into place.
Oh, I see.
That punitive approach only validated his rebellion.
But Mohan viewed him differently.
Exactly. The frail boy didn't see a problem. He saw a savior. He looked at Surya Prakash with absolute need, vulnerability, and trust.
Wow.
Surya Prakash didn't need another rule book to memorize. He needed to feel essential to another human being. That profound shift in perspective from being a burden to the institution to being a lifeline for a vulnerable child is what rewired him.
That is beautiful.
It awakened his empathy.
Yeah.
And in Premchand's worldview, empathy is the only true civilizing force.
He didn't need a rule book. He needed to feel essential.
Right.
I love that. And that really brings us full circle.
It does.
We started this deep dive looking at the crushing institutional hypocrisy of the justice system with Ray Sahab and the starving servant Damdi.
Right.
We moved into the comedy of errors and the psychological blind spots of the human ego with the dramatists and the con men.
The ego traps.
We felt the tragic sting of societal stigma and the paradox of freedom with Shraddha and Padma. And finally, we saw the incredible redeeming power of unconditional empathy with Surya Prakash and Mohan.
It is a masterful, complete tour of the human condition. And while we must acknowledge that these specific sources are anchored in the cultural landscape of 1920s India, I want to remind the listener that the psychologies driving these characters are entirely timeless.
They really are.
We all know a modern-day Sekji who uses smooth flattery to get exactly what they want without paying for it. We all know a Ray Sahab who creates one set of forgiving rules for their wealthy friends and a totally different, punitive set of rules for the marginalized. The technology and the clothing change, but the internal machinery of human hypocrisy and human redemption remains exactly the same.
Which leaves us with a lot to unpack in our own lives. We've seen how these characters perform civilization to hide their true selves, whether it's hiding behind legal jargon, intellectual vanity, or the suffocating role of the perfect, docile partner.
Exactly.
So I want you to think about your own life. Think about the social circles you run in, the hierarchy at your workplace, your romantic relationships.
Look closely at them.
Are you interacting with the real people around you, or are you just playing a role in their carefully constructed drama? And perhaps the more uncomfortable question, what role are they playing in yours? Something to think about the next time you step into the office or scroll through your feed. Keep diving deep, and we'll catch you next time.